To ask this big question to Don about what the optimal learning environment in terms of technology in the year 2040. And this camera's on. This could be on YouTube. You never know.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll clean up the language.
Okay, good.
I'll clean up the language. It's interesting that you asked me that, because since you are here in the Entertainment Technology Center, the one thing that stands out the most is the environment. All right, I think that the environment is absolutely key. You know, I think back to the last lecture when Randy Pausch was doing his talk, and his plea to parents was to please let your kid paint his or her bedroom.
Right.
And I'm like, I remember sitting there going, good God, we have to do that in the year 2007 back then? And I'm like, well, let's take it even further than that. Fix up the schools. I mean, why does every school look like some version of a prison or an asylum? Or, I mean, literally, how can you think out of the box when you're in the box? So, you know, people come in here and they're like, oh my goodness, I mean, look, it's so cool. And I'm like, well, why does the word cool have to be divorced from an actual, academic learning environment? Why don't we start with the environment itself? It still puzzles me that once a semester, once a year, you get on the big yellow bus and you're driven to some place cool, like a museum. And you go you rush through the museum, when the fact of the matter is, why isn't the museum the school? I mean, why aren't we studying science at the Science Center, where we have all of these demonstrations and we have this environment? Why aren't we studying natural history at the Natural History Museum? And I've spent a lot of time thinking, well, a large part of that is the folks in the museum don't want you there. All right, this is their toys. Think about at the Carnegie Institute, we finally, it took us 100 some years to get the paleontologists out of the basement and into an actual environment where you can watch them and you can see what they see through the microscope. And when they're chipping away the soil, the petrified soil, to reveal the fossil, it's shocking to everyone that's of interest, that's cool. And I'm like, good God, we have a lot of work to do. You know, we have a tremendous amount of work. We have a campus, Carnegie Mellon, at the Mountain View, at the NASA Ames Research Center. And you stay in the lodge there, and they've got like 3 channels devoted to NASA. And you're getting live feeds from the space station. I mean, talk about cool, put it on TV. I'm like, what do I have to do to get that? So I think that we've got some real bricks and mortar issues. A funny story that I tell all the time is I was very fortunate in the 60s and 70s. We moved from New York to Miami, and I went to an experimental school. And experimental school was one that had technology. For example, we had a TV studio. And it was inconceivable that you were going to have a TV studio at home.
What year was this?
1969, all right, in Miami, Florida. And so I couldn't wait to get to school. I mean, I would hop in my 57 Volkswagen with all the psychedelic colors, drive to school just so I could play with the TV. So for me, school was future land. And I was a theater person, and I didn't have my own theater at home. So here was this 3/4 thrust stage, the lighting. I mean, it was high tech back then. So school was future land for me. Fast forward 30 some odd years, and my daughter's going to school. And she's going to a theme park. I call it Frontierland, because she's sitting at a wooden desk that literally would creak when you opened it, be like, and she would pull out an out-of-date textbook with pages missing, highlighted by God knows how many students, written all over. I mean, it was a mess. And she would sit there literally looking at the clock, waiting for it to end so she could get in her car with GPS, with her cell phone, texting all of her friends, accessing high-speed internet, contacts all over the world, knowledge at her fingertips. And you're there saying, what is wrong with this picture? I mean, what? We know what, it's rhetorical. We know what is wrong with this picture. And I'm like, here's the issue. How do you convince school boards with cookie cutter schools and an aversion to technology and an aversion to change to say we're losing them. We're losing your children.
So here's the question. Next, in 2 weeks, Apple comes out with a tablet, or the iPad. It has Wi-Fi. It's $500. It could be. Do you feel that represents a convergence, or is there a particular attribute of it, like is multi-touch the magic portal to the future? Or
well, I was burned on the tablet PC. I mean, I thought the tablet PC was going to be it. Mm-hmm. Wow, the best of writing, which we still seem to do, with the best of technology, only to discover it wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. All right, it wasn't good enough. I mean, I ran out, bought one, and guess what? It could no more figure out my handwriting than I could figure out my doctor's handwriting on a prescription form. Yeah. Okay, yeah. And so I'm hesitant now.
Are you hesitant?
I'm hesitant now to put the mantle or the crown of finalmente, we've got it, on any technology.
Care to make a prediction in a year?
Not really. No, I don't care to make a prediction in a year. I'll tell you what I would like to do is I would like to completely redesign the classroom. All right, I want to get rid of desks and put, if anything, cockpits in. Put something that a kid is used to.
Maybe something that might look like this.
Yeah, something that might look like this.
Would it have lava lamps?
It would have anything that they wanted in there. All right, anything that they wanted. It's funny. We let our students decorate their rooms in any fashion they want. I mean, I say go to IKEA, go to town, and they think I'm just being generous. Well, what I'm doing is I'm removing all excuses. All right, and in Italian we say niente scuse, no excuses. So you can't sit there and say, well, Don, I couldn't do my best work. I mean, these walls were just white. I mean, the desk, it's like, no. You want paint, go paint it. All right, you need a futon, get a futon. You know, you need a technology, go get it. I'm going to remove all I'm going to empower you so that if you do fail, you have failed. And you're going to have to grow up as a result of that.
So you sound like a constructivist.
I've been called worse. I've been called many things in my life. I spend a lot of time thinking about the digital natives. All right? My daughter's 23, and yet I don't consider her a digital native. I mean, I'm talking about a kid for whom technology is literally as commonplace as an arm. Right. All right? These are the ones that I'm really curious about. Yeah. And, I think a lot about hyperrealism. When you think about it, there are so many levels and dimensions of existence that we cannot perceive. But if we could, what would that do to us? For example, I can't see gamma rays coming in here. I can't see the full spectrum of light. I think a lot about frequencies. All right? In other words, there's really this long spectrum of infrared and ultra, you name it. And it's like, well, my eyes can see this much, but how would my world change if I could see magnetism? All right, because we've done work on augmented reality about how do you bring magnetism to perceptive levels. And you have to do it through technology. But if you did that, what do you learn about technology?
All right, so one thing you're saying is let's use the technology to empower sensory empowerment
sensory empowerment, I would say. When you think about it, most augmented reality is really exposing reality that is there but not perceptible. Mm-hmm. All right, if I take a look at an object in a museum, it has historical significance. So we take a look at work we're doing on a museum to say, well, why is this shield why does it matter? So we're using technology to show how this shield was of use. How did a warrior have it? What did the symbols mean? All of that is bringing the contained value and knowledge of that artifact to light. The option before technology was a docent, a really smart docent, who could sit there saying, now let me show you how this was used. Or the famous little card, near the exhibit. And I'm like, come on, we can do a lot better than that. We can do much better than that. I'm also one of those who, in hindsight, wish technology was there when I was in elementary school and junior high and high studying math. I would have done a lot better at geometry if I could take a 3D object and manipulate it, like we can do now. And I'm like, okay, now I see it. I've got a bunch of senses. Let me try every single one of them until I can grasp the concept. You're talking about the multi-touch. I think we've got 3 or 4 projects right now that are using the Microsoft multi-touch Surface table.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, we also have another project where they're building their own multi-touch. And they've done that a number of times, and it's a lot cheaper than the Microsoft one. And it's got a lot more, the functionalities that are needed are built in from scratch. And what you realize, like, I'm the old guy going, wow, multi-touch, 60 inputs at one time, and they're like, oh, we can do better than that. So, I learned a long time ago as a professor to get out of the way. And really, my job is an empowerment. I'm in an empowerment position. What do you need to make magic happen? What do you need? What technology do you need? And the ETC is not a hardcore research center, but we are a hardcore research for immediate implementation center. You got all this technology there, well, what happens if you plug this thing into that? And that's where I get excited, because I like being first to market, but the market in my particular realm includes, how do we teach better? How do we create experiences where the kids go, I get it? Because anyone our age, I'm going to say, knows that kids are smarter today than we were at that age. And is it because the teachers they have are better? I don't think so. I think it's all the other avenues upon which they're able to gather information and experience. It's everything from visiting, the museums, traveling, to television, to...
So is that the advice you'd give to a young teacher who's going to spend the next 20, 40 years in the classroom, what you do with your students to get out of the way?
I would say that I think our model should be more Yoda. All right? A lot more Yoda and a less more, Sister Mary Capricious, with the ruler and all that. I mean, for example, I don't know of anyone who's familiar with the 100,000 applications available for the iPhone. All right?
I am.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you are. Warren, as soon as you walked in, I said, this guy knows all 100,000.
I'm afraid I do.
And the thousands that are being added, monthly. But it's like, you know what? Let them find out. What is out there that would actually make my studies easier. When I first got to computer science, and I'm a drama professor, and I 15 years ago went over to computer science and worked on a project called Infomedia, which I thought was one of the coolest things in the world. Digital video library, eminently searchable, knowledge just being called up. And we started to work with a local school. And I thought, wow, here it is. Rather than a term paper, we're going to be saying to students, make your own NOVA episode, NOVA episode on this science. And it didn't happen. And I'm like, why didn't this happen? And all of a sudden it's, who's got the copyright? Who wants the royalty? You're not allowed to do this. The technology is expensive. It's much less expensive now.
No, right.
And the teachers are making no money. The turnover in the school is mind-boggling. Or they've been there since they graduated from college at 21 and just want to get through the day, and they're in a routine, and it's like, you want me to learn what? And change how I do things? Are you going to give me the year off to do that? No. And what you see is system broke, system broke, system broken, system broken. And there's nobody, we don't have an emperor who's going to say, guess what? We're going to do it this way. Which is one of the reasons why, as an American, I'm kind of sad, because I do a lot of work in Asia. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of work in Asia. And you don't have the obstacles. Is it totalitarian? Maybe. But is it we're going to educate our kids. We're going to make these technologies available. We're going to build high-speed trains. We're going to do this. Yes. And I've encountered, I'm old enough now and was interested in enough politics to know that, wow, our system does not make things easy, and it's not a great system. I'd like to have a politician run for office who doesn't start out everything by going, we are the greatest nation on the planet. It's like, can we stop saying that? Because in some things we are, in some things we're not. Mm-hmm. And when you start saying we're the greatest, it's like, well, we don't need to learn anything. Oh, there is so much we need to learn. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is, you have to get over that arrogance and that ego, because the only people you're shortchanging are your kids. And I want my daughter to be 50 times smarter than me. All right? And I still like to believe that every parent wants their kid to be smarter, happier, more well off, more attuned to what really matters in the world. But I'm not sure we're leading by example. And the ETC is my stab at, wow, can we do it? Can we do it right? Mm-hmm. And the fact that the world is the one knocking on the door more than America, how do we get an environment like this in Singapore? How do we get an environment like this in Korea? How do we get an environment like this? The one thing the U.S. has, I'm going to say in spades, above any other country is innovation. I mean, while everything else seems to have gotten more difficult to do, we still have wild ideas. We're still wildly creative. Mm-hmm. In everything from Hollywood to a lot of games, to immersive environments like theme parks, and
You're excited by 3D right now?
I'm excited by 3D because it's being used properly. All right.
I saw Avatar. Full disclosure. And
okay.
I walked out of the theater a different person.
I was blown away by Avatar. All right. It's funny what Heidi's here. Heidi was the production manager on Avatar. Okay. She's from Pittsburgh. Plus, I've seen the work that's being done at Pixar, at Disney, at DreamWorks. And you know what? Here's a technology. The worst thing you can do with this technology is overuse it. Okay, it's overuse it. And you have artists, cinematographers, DPs who are using it now, and they're using it properly. And it's
brilliant.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely. It's not like the 50s when it was, how many things can we jut out you? Or when you go to a 7-8 minute experience like Muppets at Disney Studios, where you want as many things coming out at you because it's a real quick experience and you want to leave wowed. But Avatar, come on.
And let me drop another one at you. The whole idea of Natal and Sony's new wave motion sensing.
The thing I'll say about that is, for the Entertainment Technology Center and that's old technology. The students have shown a desire to do that, have built things to do that over a decade ago. Mm-hmm. So if anything, the mass market is catching up. Mm-hmm. All right, it's catching up. I mean, one thing where the commercial people stunned us was the Wii. Mm-hmm. Who knew? Right. Who knew? Right. And actually, the Wii I find so exciting because.
By the way, I knew. By the way.
Okay, Warren. For the record, Warren, you are there, buddy.
I know it's really hard. It's hard.
Just sit here. I just want you to sit here and never leave.
Right. No problem.
No, I'm excited about the new technologies coming out. Yeah. It's like, well, suppose you brought drama people and computer sciences together. I mean, together, like live together. What would happen? Well, this is what happens. And the great thing about the book is it's not just a book, it's the first book ever with a synthetic interview. So the technology that was created here, if you're not sick of me after reading 144 pages of my life, you can put the DVD in and ask me up to 250 questions about Randy, about the ETC, about life, about my philosophy. And meanwhile, it's my office. And what my artists did was they made everything in the office work. So I'm talking and you can sit there and draw You can color me.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can do all sorts of weird things. My planes will start flying around.
When's the book come out?
April 6th.
Cool.
Yeah, April
Excellent.
6th.
We'll put it on the must-have.
And are you the comet or the tornado?
Guess.